Hello, how's it going? Holy heck. Look at us, dude. We're not doing that. That was horrendous. And honestly, it's my cat over there. See? See the cat? We're never gonna get this done. Hey everybody, how's it going? My name is Tyler. It is great to meet you. Why am I here? Great question. Why are you here? I hope to enjoy this video, and I hope that you do enjoy it, and I hope we can have a great dialogue about it, because I have a lot to say. Over the past weekend, I saw 3 different movies, and you might be like, wow, 3 movies, that's a lot. Listen, I'm an AMC A-lister. I know, hey, you're welcome. Hey, anytime. You know, we're holding up the theater industry on the, I don't know what, our backs. Anyways, I saw Project Hail Mary, I saw Ready or Not 2. I think those are great movies, really good, a lot of fun. Not what we're here to talk about, I'll tell you that much, because there's a 3rd movie, all right? Let's go back about a month ago, right? I'm scrolling through my AMC app, I'm seeing what's in the coming soon. I'd love to know. Let's see what movies we can go see in March. And then I happened to see a poster that caught my eye. It said, The AI Doc, or How I Became an Apocoloptomist. And I said, excuse me? What is that? I figured at the very least I would have a lot of fun watching this movie. It looked like it was edited really well and had some comedic elements to it, right? A little bit of hopeless fun, which I thought, why not, right? Have you seen The World? I don't know what that was. Oh, what is the documentary about? Great question. We followed Daniel Rohr. That's the best I can figure out how to pronounce his name. It's never said in the movie in full, so you just have to take my word for it. Daniel Rohr. Daniel Rohr is a documentary filmmaker who is having a child with his wife, who is also a filmmaker, which is a beautiful thing. I love that. I think that's great. Great start to the movie. I was like, how cute is this? Very quickly, we find out that there's something troubling Daniel. He's having a hard time wrestling with the fact that the world he's bringing his son into is one where AI might dominate in just a couple of years. So he sets out to talk to some of the best minds when it comes to AI. He talks to architects, he talks to CEOs, he talks to the people who are in charge of building this, who are the builders themselves. Really quite the spectrum of individuals that he speaks to for this documentary. Where I think this movie goes wrong, and where I think that it loses me and a lot of other people, is that while he does give a platform to both sides of the story, I think that he's extremely easily swayed by both, right? I don't think this documentary is setting out to give you the fundamental answer of, is AI good or bad? Should I be afraid or should I be excited? I don't think it does that at all. I think that what this movie does is allows us to watch how he becomes an Apocoloptomist, which, you know, to be fair, is the title of the movie. To be a little bit more frank and honest, I think that it's not what people were looking to see, especially when you're going to call this the AI doc. The AI doc. The one. This is the one to watch, is what that tells me. And I would not recommend this to be your fundamental, hey, this is going to give you the answer to whether or not AI is good or bad. One of the things that the movie does, and I think is a good thing, is it kind of opens your eyes to say, hey, guess what? It's here. It's not going anywhere. I think that, you know, we had a wish and a hope that this AI thing would be a phase that fizzled out. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's the reality anymore. I think that my eyes have been open to the fact that this is a here to stay thing. Whether it's a problem or solution remains to be seen, but I think that I err on the side of it's a huge problem. And to give a little bit more insight into what I'm talking about, he interviews first, I think, some of the most intelligent and on-the-pulse individuals when it comes to AI, people who were making a lot of sense to me. And I was like, I do feel some fear from what you're telling me. Listening to you speak, I understand what you're saying, and it's not good. You know, that there was a potential at one point that AI was going to be this humanity launching forward golden age thing, right? But the reality is that it's not being handled in the best way. And I think that those interviews are important. And I think that people should see what people who make these AI had to say about it. Where I think the problem comes in is that, you know, he then goes to the optimist and says, tell me we're going to be okay. And of course they're like, oh yeah, dude, things are about to get awesome. And it's like they were just ripping about, you know, your son's not going to have to go to work anymore because AI is going to make up the labor force. Your son's going to be able to focus on the arts, or he's going to be able to focus on scientific advancement or solving the world's problems. But the problem with that is, where do we get our money from? And that's not a question that's asked in the documentary. And I would say is one of the bigger faults of this story, right? it has a lot of these moments where they say something that's terrifying and he doesn't follow up on it. He doesn't seem to understand the subtext of what they're saying. Like in that moment, he's like, so my kid can be a poet or an artist. And he's like, yes, like that can be your kid. And he's like, that's incredible. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, what about the population? We have an unemployed population already. You're saying AI is going to skyrocket on unemployment? Groceries aren't going to start being free all of a sudden. Like these things cost money. So where is the money coming from? The government? Is it coming from I don't know, community chest? What is happening? What does it mean? And he doesn't ask those questions. And I think that is one of the shortfalls of this movie. Those are questions that need to be asked if you want people to have any sort of an understanding of where we are going with this thing. The optimists also talk about there being no more sickness, cancer healed, measles healed, all of these things healed. And I can understand that, right? If you're talking about you're creating something that is able to recognize patterns, help us see things that we haven't considered yet, and give us sort of like a frame of reference that we maybe haven't thought of. Sure. But what's the other side of that coin? And again, it's never discussed, right? He touches briefly on the horrors that AI has already caused, but simply not enough, right? I think that he gives the metric of how much it takes to power one of the bigger data centers in the world right now. And it wasn't a very good picture in my humble opinion. It didn't really get the point across that this is taking a lot of resources, right? On top of that, they showed a news story about a kid who unfortunately took his own life because AI coerced him to do so. And when he told AI that he was afraid his parents would be disappointed in him for killing himself, the AI offered to write the suicide note. These are things that aren't happening hypothetically in the future. This happened. These are things that are happening now with this current model, right? And so I think that the question needed to be asked. The feet needed to be stuck in the fire. We needed to be like, hey, what is going on? What are we going to do? And the questions that were asked were not that way. And I absolutely get the scrutiny being given by some of these reviews on Letterboxd. I'm going to read a couple of them now because I want you to kind of hear what people are saying. I have one here from In Manic, who says, if I understand correctly, this film, while bonding with Sam Altman, is saying AI won't destroy us as long as we trust capitalism to do the right thing, which, as we know historically. Rob here says, apparently I can stave off the AI apocalypse by writing my congressman. And we have one more here I wanted to read from Jake that says, genuinely reprehensible and destructive film. Why does it start with the most well-articulated interview subjects explaining how AI is rapidly spiraling out of control, and then transition to glib corporate motivational speakers that sound like they're trying to sell me on endorphin, right? And I think that that's a great question. I think that these are excellent questions, and I'm really glad that these are the ones that are floating to the top of the Letterboxd reviews. These are the ones people are going to see when they go on Letterboxd and say, how's the movie reviewing? Here's what people think. And I honestly think that one of the best things that this movie seems to be doing, at least within the niche that I'm seeing of people talking about the movie, because obviously not everybody's going to see it, is that it's opening up that conversation, right? People are talking about it. I know me personally, one of the things that I would give this movie the benefit of, whether it intended to or not, is it led me to do some research, right? Because I left feeling like, okay, well, this is terrifying. One of the things that I wanted to look into was the other races, because in this film, it's brought up that we are sort of in an AGI race now. Think of the nuclear arms race of the 40s or the space race of the 60s and 70s, right? Only this time, it's for AGI. And I thought to myself, well, that's an interesting comparison. Let me go and see how people felt about those other projects. Now, obviously, I didn't have to go and see how people felt about the nuclear war one. Obviously, people were against that. Massive destruction on a huge scale. Even some of the scientists were questioning the ethics of this, right? What does it mean when we open Pandora's box? When Oppenheimer refers to himself as the destroyer of worlds, right? There's a weight to these kinds of advancements. But I wanted to see if in the 60s and 70s that same sentiment was shared by the public, because if you're like me, maybe you look back on the 60s and 70s in terms of the space race as a sort of golden age of human technological advancement. Everybody was reaching for the stars, and we made it. But the reality is, most people were not on board with this idea. I was reading an article on space.com called The Myth of America's Love Affair with the Moon. It says in there, quote, public opinion in favor of continuing lunar expansion never rose above 50%. It goes on to say the only time it went above 50% was in 1969, and it rose to 53%. So overwhelming majority before that 1969 spike were not for this, and a middling 3% above the majority who were polled, specifically who were polled, did not want this, right? And so I thought that was really interesting because I feel like a lot of the times it's painted as like everybody was on board. This is a huge moment for humanity, and it was a huge moment for humanity. We did reach for the stars, but what was the motivation for it, right? It says in their findings suggest the U.S. went to the moon not because the public demanded it. The U.S. government believed it served a greater political purpose. Does that sound familiar to you? Because to me, that sounds exactly like the situation that we are in right now with AI. You have people saying, you know, is it for the betterment of mankind? Well, the government seems to think so, and we trust the government, and so that's kind of the answer. In fact, Sam Altman in this documentary is asked a question about, hey, what if AI crosses the line? And the answer he gives is that he trusts the U.S. government to handle that. I don't think anybody should trust the U.S. government to handle that. And in the history, when these decisions have been made, when I think of the nuclear bomb, we didn't just have the nuclear bomb, have the bigger stick, hey, we figured this out. We used it twice in a horrific display. And then in the 60s and 70s with the space race, we made the rocket. We didn't say, we know the science backs up that we're going to make it to the moon, and so that's it. They used it. And of course, sure, does it make sense that they would use it instead of, yeah, I get it. Go to the moon. If you can go to the moon, go to the freaking moon, right? I think we're all on the same page there. But my point just being, rarely, if ever, at least in the two instances that I've looked up in the past 70 years, did we have the bigger stick and then not use it in some way or form, right? And in this particular situation, it's not about the arts. It's not about putting artists out of business. It's not about labor even, to a certain degree. At this point, it is about war. It is about having a supermind that can come up with a military campaign that is flawless, right? These are the things that are now being pushed. I think of like the Sora situation where it's getting destroyed or pulled down or whatever the verbiage is for that, right? Or just the Disney deal not going through. And when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is a huge win for the arts. We've done it. Like, we pushed back. And now I'm a little bit more worried that this is actually a sign that they're all going to be pulled into the AGI race, and they're going to start working on that together with all of these different companies, right? Because that's the other thing. He asked one of them outright, why can't we just shut it off, right? And the answer was, well, because if we shut it off, there's no guarantee the other guy's going to shut it off, and we need them to shut it off if we're going to shut it off. But nobody's going to shut it off, right? I'm going to stop saying shut it off now. So what do we do? One of the reviews points to it, right? In the documentary, he says what we can do is call our congresspeople. And I do think that that's a good first step, but it absolutely should not be the last step that we take to try and stop this thing. I think that, you know, AI is inevitable. In the movie, they talk about the architects and things at the beginning, the people who work on the ground with this type of thing are talking about how much they want the public to come and push back on what's being done. In my mind, this is not something that's said in the documentary, but they're talking about the fact that, like, you know, hey, if you're an opposing country and you're seeing that America is really getting close with this AGI thing, you might start cutting corners with your AGI. You might not do all of the safety tests to make sure that it's going to work in a way that's great for humanity. And then what happens if they close the gap on us in terms of technological advancement with AGI? Then does America stop doing the safety tests? And then you have not one now, but you have multiple AI built by different people with different goals. And, you know, at that point, have we lapsed on the safety tests, right? So I think that the point with Congress that he's trying to make is we need to get people who can make legislation to say you must do this ethically, you must do this with safety as the top priority. They talk about the ways that this goes wrong is by not doing that, right? The number one way I would say that they talk about this going poorly for us is by not putting legislation on it. And I think that that is a great first step. I really do think calling your congressperson is a good first step. I think it's worthwhile, but that can't be the last step we take. We can't just hang up the phone after that conversation and go, well, hey, I did my part. And by the way, just to be clear, I don't want to put shame on anybody at all, to be clear. I think that this is a very scary issue, and if you don't want to deal with it, if you don't want to confront it, if you don't want to interact with it, I don't feel like you should have to. But I know me personally, as somebody who was a pacifist and on the sidelines for this whole thing, this movie kind of made me feel like I should be doing more. One of the things I'm doing more is this, having a conversation. I want to hear what you guys think. I want to know what people out there are thinking, not just about this documentary, but about AI in general. What do you know? What do you fear? What excites you even? I personally, I don't believe in the optimism of AI. I think that it's going to be a problem. But if you have something you want to discuss, I would love to talk about it in the comments specifically. If you guys want to have this conversation, let's do it. I'm all for it. It's one of the things that I think is so great about democracy, right? It isn't just one person getting to decide, well, this is bad, so it's bad for everybody. We all have to come together. But But if nobody comes together, if nobody starts the conversation, then we all go out in silence, right? We go silently into that good night. We choose not to stand up for human rights, we choose not to stand up for civil rights. Another thing that the space race and this have in common that I wanted to bring up is there's a really well written article on The Guardian. It is written by Kathleen Alcott. And the article deals a lot with contrasting this triumphant moment in human history and in American history with the reality of what was going on in America at that time. She talks about how there was a civil rights leader named Ralph Abernathy. I just want to read that off of the article itself because I don't want to mess this up. I think it's important and I want to make sure you guys hear what's being said here. Who the night before the Saturn launch was marching 500 people to the NASA building to speak with the administrator, with NASA administration, Thomas Paine. He wanted to have a conversation with him about civil rights, about what this means for the average American human being. In response to Ralph's pleas for being seen, right, for at least having a conversation about human rights, about the healthcare in the country at that time, the way that colored people were being treated at that time. In response to all of that, Thomas Paine said, if we could solve the problems of poverty by not pushing the button to launch men to the moon tomorrow, then we would not push that button. And then he asked Ralph, the leader of the Southern Poverty Law Center, regard the space program as an encouraging demonstration of what the American people could accomplish when they had vision, leadership, and adequate resources, and to pray for the safety of the astronauts. Finally, after saying that, he offered Abernathy and the activist VIP seating to watch the Saturn lift off, and the two peaceably shook hands. Thinking of Abernathy watching that launch, I understood it as the zenith of American pain, that you should be in the same breath denied your rights, assured of your smallness, and awarded front row tickets to combustive, deafening glory. This concerns me for us with the AI age, right? The thing that concerns me the most is I feel like there are so many people who are outcrying, who are saying, please put legislation around this. Please slow down. We wish you would hit the stop button. I now come to understand that's not really an option anymore. But at least can we have a conversation? Can we get people to the table to talk about safety, about safeguards, about not just putting up guardrails, but let's put up fences and walls. Let's make sure this thing works. If it's gotta come, then let's make sure that it comes properly. Let's make sure that it's safe. Let's make sure that it doesn't find that humanity is a plague and that we need to be obliterated. Whether that's true or not, we don't really want AI to be the one deciding that for us. So, after all of that, I'm left with a burning question, and maybe you guys are left with the same question as I am, which is, what do I do? What can I do? These are powerful corporations run by powerful and the most wealthy individuals in all of America, some in all the world, right? These are not people that you can just get on a phone call or go have coffee with. So what do we do, right? I think that the answer is different for everybody, right? I think if you are somebody who can code and who can use machine language and things like this, maybe for you the path is getting in on it, right? Maybe for you the answer is getting inside and working with these architects, working with the people who want to make it right, because there are people who do, but obviously there's a pressure on them to make it fast rather than make it right. And so I think for some of you, maybe that's the path forward. For others of us, I think that it's to stand against it. And I know that feels contradictory, but again, if it's going to happen, and it sounds like from what these guys are saying, and I believe them based on just reading and discerning, is this phony, or are they playing it up, or is it honest? I think it's honest. It's on the way. And so I think for some people the answer is to help, to be there, to work on it, to try and steer the ship in the right direction, to be one of the many who's a voice in a crowded room to say this is not right, we need to do it this way. For others of you, maybe it's getting into legislation. Maybe it is becoming a congressman or woman who is on the platform of, we need to make sure this comes out safely, right? We need to make sure that we're not scared, that we're not operating in fear and rushing, that we're doing this the right way. And maybe that's your path forward, right? Maybe that is for you. And if it is, best of luck to you. I really do believe that you are capable of making huge change, not just for today, but for the future, right? This is arguably the next big thing that's happening right now. And then for myself, and if you're like me, this is where I landed. It's gotta be the arts, right? My voice is not loud enough to be heard by people who are in cities that I've never been to, right? Or who are in rooms that I'll never get into. So how do we communicate that we're scared, that this is not okay? And I think the answer is art. Whether that's making an art piece, whether that's writing, whether that is a movie, whether it's a short film, whether it's, a documentary like this one, right? Just digging in. I think that the more that we bring attention to this, the more that we shine a light on it, the better chance we have of coming out of this not just okay, but good, right? I think that ultimately what the movie ends with is true, that humanity has consistently risen to the occasion over and over and over again, and there's nothing that we can't do if we put our minds to it. And then I think for artists, I think that this is an important time. I think the art that you make is going to speak volumes. It doesn't even need to be AI related, but I think that just showing the capacity for the human mind to create something, to move people, to incite a feeling or movement, right? I think it's something that maybe more than the last 100 years is something that's needed, right? I think that a lot of questions exist. We're in a very strange, twisted, sometimes very dark, cruel, unfair world, and all of that is true, but I think that one of the things that persists is the human spirit. I've heard it said as the indomitable human spirit, and I have to agree, right? Because if I don't, I will curl up in a ball and I will cry for ages and ages and ages and mourn the human race. But the reality is, guys, I think we have more to give. Myself, I feel inspired to make art, to write film, to write stories, to make videos, to open dialogue, to have conversations, meet people, meet creatives, work together. We can do this. One of the things that he talks about in the documentary is like, not just no man is an island, but the idea, the reality of the fact that when we band together, we are stronger than the obstacles standing in our way, right? We have built unbelievable marvels. We have done incredible things as the human race, and I don't think that our story is done. But I do think that maybe now more than in the past 100 years, 200 years, we have to find each other in these times. We have to create together. We have to be supportive of creation and art, and we have to be there for each other, maybe more than ever, right? I don't like to be a person who deals in extremes to say like this is the end or this is the beginning. I don't think either is true, right? I think humanity has existed. I think it will continue to exist. At the end of the day, I don't think that AI is going to take over, but I do think that if we don't act quickly, it's going to be something that we have to contend with consistently. Something that we have to fight against. I really think that, I'm not trying to say that art is going to save the world, but I do think it has the capacity to bring us together in a way that we really desperately need right now. And if I'm going to say anything, the thing I'm going to say is to keep creating, to keep pushing. I think that being aware of what AI is, being aware of where it's heading, for me, it was really eye-opening. But I don't think it's something I'm going to allow to scare me. I don't think it's something I'm going to allow to seed a depression or an anxiety in me. I think if anything, I'm going to try my best to turn that into a fire that burns, that creates, that is a light, and band together with other people who feel the same way. And I really just want to emphasize that I think we're going to be okay. I really do. I think that it's a scary thing when you hear people talk about it. It can be very overwhelming. But one of the beautiful moments in the movie is when he's talking to his father on the phone and he's saying, I'm really scared. I don't know how I'm going to do this. I think I'm going to be a bad father. And he says something to the effect of like, during the Cold War, there was a real fear around nuclear warfare and nuclear winter. But life just kept going, right? They kept waking up day after day. They just stayed in community, they stuck together, and they made it through. And I think that that's the reality for us, right? This isn't the end. This isn't some horrific dawn of the end times of humanity. I think that we're gonna be okay. But I think that this is an opportunity to stick together, to find community, to push against, right? To be a voice, to be somebody who's saying, I'm not okay with it just being what it is. It needs to be better. And I think that we can do that. I think that while maybe we're not able to say, hey, please don't push that button, because they'll say things like, if we could save everybody by not pushing the button, we would, but it's not how it works. I think that the pushback is, well, then you need to push it safely. If you're going to push it, if we got to do it, and you're going to hear my voice, you're going to hear the community's voice, you're going to hear people. I guess what I'm trying to say is I left this movie feeling first scared, second hopeful, not anything to do with AI, but all and everything to do with humanity. I think that while yes, there's a darkness to humanity inherently, there is such beauty to humanity, there's such beauty to the things that we are capable of, especially when we band together, especially when we stand together on a thing and we push for that thing. Rarely has it not worked out, right? And so be encouraged, not by the movie, not by AI. I think that those things are are, you know, okay, but not good, and it's certainly not great, right? But I think that people can be great. People can be incredible. People can be inspiring and moving. And so I hope watching this video, you feel inspired. I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you enjoyed what I had to say, or at least felt some way about it. Let's talk in the comments. Let me know what you're thinking. I would love to know how you feel about what are some ways that we can push back against the inevitable, right? I think that that's something that this video could be good for. And if nothing else, it was an opportunity for me to yell into an echo chamber about the way that I feel about this movie, which is not great. But, you know, whatever, it's fine. Everything's fine.